Good afternoon, we are now live.
Good afternoon. My name is Vincent Garnier. I'm the Director General of the FTTH Council Europe, and I have the pleasure to moderate this new session of our webinar series. This session is specifically sponsored by an FTTH Council member, IQGeo, and is titled Unlock the Secrets to the Fiber Network Planning and Design Process. Before I introduce you to our speakers for today and introduce the content of this webinar today, let me walk you through some general consideration. Starting on the next slide with just a few information about the FTTH Council for those who are not familiar with our organization. We're an association, non-for-profit, founded 20 years ago. Our mission is the promotion of full fiber network as the most future-proof and sustainable access network technology. We organize online events, but also in-person activity like the FTTH conference. We have committee. We also have an advocacy work advising policymakers on how to best make fiber available for all citizens. Now, the session is part of a series of webinar, and on the next slide, I just want to give you some information. The webinar will be recorded. The deck, which is presented today, will be also sent to all participants with access to the replay after this event within a few days. You can interact with the speakers via the question window, which should appear on your panel control. We cannot hear you asking the question, but we will take at the end of the session all written questions. And in case we could not address them with the available time, I'm sure Jeroen from IQGeo will take them offline and answer you diligently. So with that, let me introduce you to the topic of today. And on the next slide, maybe what will you learn during this session? Within the FTTH Council, we have a variety of members. They are covering the entire value chain of the FTTH network deployment and adoption. Some are vendor of hardware, other are on the passive side, on the active side, and other are more focused on bringing very smart solution to enable the reduction of time, cost, increased quality, and better deal with the complexity of the operations. And that's clearly the case of IQGeo. This is what they are doing. And I'm thrilled to see that today we are gonna talk about this topic via also the concrete experience of Proximus, Belgium operator in the middle of a very aggressive rollout action plan in Belgium. So it's good to hear from what is taking place really in the ground and understand how solutions can really help improving the efficacy of the rollout. So without further ado, let me introduce to the two speakers, starting with Geert Breuland, Domain Manager, Network Business Unit at Proximus. Welcome. And representing IQGeo, Jeroen van Averbeck, Fiber Product Manager. And Jeroen, the floor is yours. You will be leading this conversation, and I'll come back at different moments to help you with, I guess, some poll question to start with.
Yes, thank you, Vincent, and welcome everybody to this webinar. So as Vincent introduced, we'll be talking about the deployment challenges in the fiber to the home network. And yeah, as mentioned, I'll be running the initial bit and then pass it over to Geert for some more actual successes performed by Proximus. So Geert is domain manager for fiber at Proximus, and myself, I'm in the product management department at IQGeo. But we're also very interested to learn or hear who is attending this webinar in order to make sure that we're addressing the right points and talking to the challenges that we know are there, but would be good to emphasize a couple of things. So in that respect, it's well, the first question is actually to you in the audience to see which job description most closely fits what you are doing today, and also based on that, which challenges that you're encountering in your day-to-day job in the fiber to the home deployment. So I have a couple of options there. I think, Vincent, you will start the poll.
Yeah, we're already sharing, Jeroen, and we're asking, and people immediately understand where they have to click. And I can see already that we have a variety of profile from high-level planning, low-level planning, GIS expert, general manager position, or any other function in the FTTH ecosystem. So it's actually fairly balanced, and I think close to 60% of the attendees have voted. I'll give them maybe another 20 seconds before sharing the result, so you have an idea of who you're talking to, Jeroen. I think we're good. I'll end the poll and share the result. And you should normally see the result. I don't have that in front of me. Are you guys seeing the result?
I can see it, yes. So indeed, it's
okay, perfect. So as you can see, it's very balanced between the different role you have listed as possible answers.
Yeah, indeed. And that's also a bit what we were expecting. The points on the slide, or the questions that we've outlined, are the different aspects of any fiber to the home deployment. You need to have high-level planning, you need to have low-level planning. GIS data is very important, and also the other aspects, can't be forgotten. So there's quite a lot of challenges in every stage of the process. So I'm happy to see that everybody is present here, and we can talk about quite a lot of the challenges that we see happening. Thanks for your participation in that poll. So I'll start off with a very short introduction of IQGeo. So the company I'm working for is a software vendor for telecom and utility customers. You see a couple of the bigger, most known clients on the left-hand side. We have a worldwide presence of more than 450 customers. And on the right-hand side, you see what we are trying to achieve: accelerating time to revenue with one single integrated network view. So historically, companies have focused on a couple of the aspects of the whole design workflow, from a design to an actual operation of a network. But IQGeo is trying to bundle all of that in one single system with all of the aspects that are listed there: design, build, monetize, and eventually operate the network. Of course, today, as the title of the webinar sort of tells you guys, is that we're focusing on the design. So the first aspect, the first circle on the right-hand side of this specific slide. And moving on, very high level, the business challenge that we have seen in any network deployment, design deployment, first of all, is a very high cost. So a fiber to the home network is a major undertaking. You need to reach a lot of people, a lot of homes. There's quite a lot of creation being needed, construction, such as trenching, high equipment costs, high labor costs. And typically, if you are spending quite a large budget, it's really useful to optimize that and try to shave off percentages left and right, make sure that it is spent as well as possible. That's an important point. Second column here talks about the speed of the design process. So as mentioned, it's a large volume of data, of a large volume of people you need to manage, and the results you want to achieve. So it really needs to have very good scheduling, project management, and so on. Because what you don't want to do is redesigning. Typically that takes quite a lot of time, because you need to have more data in there, more decisions. And it has the risk of reducing the motivation and productivity of design teams, which of course is not what you want to do and in the process. And on the right-hand side, design quality issues are also a challenge. So manual planning often causes suboptimal choices, because there's different people making the choices, and a senior designer will look at it differently than somebody who's not as long in the job. And that really gives some differences in design quality. And also the speed of design required. Typically, anyone rolling out fiber wants to be first in the market, or as soon in the market as is possible. So the design process at the beginning of a network construction is a crucial phase to get in there fast and make sure that speed is really of the essence. So in that respect, I'll come back to you guys and ask another poll question. I've just outlined a couple of the things that we've noticed over the years that are challenges, but just think about what is the number one challenge that you have today in the design process? Is it data quality on the input side, the actual speed of design and creation of what is needed to do the next steps? Or is it the quality of the designs that are being created by your teams?
So Jeroen, the poll is launched. There are already maybe 40% of the audience having voted. I can see one answer seems to gain the majority of the votes. Okay, 50% voted. Let's give them another 20 seconds. It looks like we have a clear winner out of the three. So yeah, I think I can share. It's not likely to change a lot. I'll share the results. With 55% voted, 56% is input data quality, largely in front of the other two, which are around a 20% mark.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Vincent, for hosting that. And again, this confirms something that we have seen in the business over the past few years. This is really essential to have your data, which is the basis for all designs, to have that quality in there. And I'm expecting Geert to touch upon that as well once he gets into his slide deck. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about that, because indeed the further challenges that I wanted to indicate is indeed the input data. First of all, the nature of the input data is mainly the GIS data. So if you are working on rolling out the fiber to the home network, you do need to work on GIS data. The age-old way of paper and pencil, that just doesn't work. You need to have digitized geographical information, which should be of as high quality as possible. And there's a couple of ways to get to that. So if you're looking at the bigger operators out there, there are some who have their own databases of GIS data that they can pull from and that they can build upon. But also there's quite a lot of data available online or by doing street surveys and so on. So the external or internal data is really the basis of what you want to do. And as all of you guys have confirmed, quality of the data is essential. Then next to that, there's a couple of other things that need to be decided. So the network architecture. If you look at the landscape of different vendors and equipment, there is quite a lot out there. Do you go for a point-to-point or a passive optical network infrastructure? How many spare fibers do you need in the cables? How many spare ducts do you want in your plastic you put in the ground? So there's quite a lot of choices to be made, and that's only on the architecture side. Further on, there's the actual rollout process. So how to structure rollout phases. Do you build out first close to your point of presence, or will you go out a bit further, for example, to an area where you know the clients will have a higher chance of taking up the service? So there's quite a lot of things to be decided. And in the end, it all comes down to decision criteria. What are the reasons to make certain decisions? And again, this comes back to the data question, because all of these will need to be decided before you can put any boot on the ground or spade in the mud, because this needs to be decided before you do all of that, and you need data for that. So as mentioned before, GIS data is a starting point. On the screen here, there's a very short view of what we mean with GIS data. So it's addresses, poles, streets, etc. Anything that is put on the map, which needs to have a certain accuracy in terms of homes or apartments. You need to have the exact home count. If there's 5 apartments too few or too less in a certain building, that leads to quite a problem during rollout. You need to have view of available capacity of equipment that is already in the ground. So that's all the data that you need to gather either prior or during the design process. That's all very necessary. Then again, going back to the network architecture, based on the equipment that you've decided to use. So if you have decided on a certain cabinet to use, that means that you can only host a certain number of homes, a certain maximum distance as well. If you're, for example, working in a rural area, that will really give you some influences of the optical budget. So you need to have you need to make sure that all of the end user equipment gets the right optical budget in there. And on the right hand side, I've put an image of a potential network architecture, which is created for a specific case, which is, I think, a rule case in this instance. So architecture is one thing. Then the other thing is material and equipment. I've mentioned cabinets, but there's also, of course, cables, ducts, closures. Again, quite a lot of choices to be made. And it's essential in the beginning that you make the right choice of equipment to put in the ground for your specific situation. And in the end, it all boils down to costs, because costs, in order to make a business case that is positive, where you will make sure that your investment is returned, need to have the right costing factors in there, making sure that if you pay for a more expensive cabinet, for example, to host more clients, then that investment is returned after you've deployed and operating the network. So the cost is an important factor, which we do want to take into account in the design phase already. And doing all of that, if you have a lot of good input data and a lot of decisions on the architecture, material, and cost, and so on, what you would like to get to is a bill of materials. So for any network design that is created, you would like to see, well, for example, here I'm deploying an area to 870 homes. I have a total cost of about $1 million in this example, with the cost per home, and that's what you want to get to as early as possible in the design stage, so you can see, well, the cost is maybe too high, or the cost is sufficient. We can maybe add another piece of network coverage, and that's where you want to get to, with a bill of material of all of the individual pieces that make up the network. And if this is all achieved, then there are other things you can do. For example, this is an image of once you have created a network model. The costs are in there. You can plot it out on the screen and see the cost per address. For example, in this specific view on the right bottom side, you see a lot of orange and red. So maybe that's not the best area to start rolling out in if you want to have an early return on investment, unless this is, for example, a business park, or you know that there are clients who will take up the service quite quickly. So giving all of the input data just described, you can create a network model, and then based on that network model, do some decisions, do some analysis on where to go next or where to go first, and have a logical order in your network rollout. So that's my brief introduction. I'll pass on to Geert here, who will describe a bit more what his experiences are and the Proximus case in Belgium.
Yes, thank you, Jeroen, for having me in this presentation. I will indeed give some more explications in detail how Proximus is tackling the network, the fiber network deployment. So my name is Geert Bruinland, working already a very long time for Proximus, and working the last 7 to 8 years, I think, in the department that is responsible for that fiber network deployment. So, but first, before going into detail about how we are using ComSoft, IQGeo ComSoft, first a few words about Proximus. If you can go to the next slide, Jeroen. Yes, so for those that don't know Proximus, Proximus is the incumbent telecom operator in Belgium. Already active a very long time, almost a century, having more than 10,000 FTEs, employees, in Belgium, but also abroad, because Proximus is in the last years more and more active also in the international stage. But in Belgium itself, we are very active. And as all bigger companies, we have also a strategy. The strategy has 6 pillars on the next slide here. Going very briefly over it. Voila. We have six pillars in our strategy, and one of those pillars is dedicated to the deployment of the fiber network. It's always handy if you're working in a department that is responsible for fiber deployment, if that fiber deployment is also embedded in the strategy of the company. So we want to roll out the #1 gigabit network in Belgium. And we are very active in doing so. On the next slide, you can see a little map of Belgium. If it is coming, yes, there it is. Where we in Belgium are for the time being deploying fiber. We started off with Proximus as a standalone company deploying fiber, and that are the purple dots on the map. And afterwards, we are deploying standalone mainly in the dense city areas. So that's where we started our fiber deployment. We also created 2 joint ventures, the joint venture FiberClar and Unifiber, with FiberClar working in the deploying fiber in the north of the country, Unifiber in the south of the country. We acquired FiberClar last year, so we are fully owner of FiberClar now. And we all are also deploying fiber for GoFiber in the east part of Belgium, what we call the German-speaking community, because yes, in Belgium we have 3 official languages. We have Dutch, French, and German, and the people in the German-speaking community are, the government over there took the initiative to also deploy fiber, and we are doing that for them as well. So in the end, now we are deploying fiber in more than 170 cities. You can see it on the slide. 2.2 million homes have been passed with fiber, and that accounts for more or less 37%. We were a bit late to the party in Belgium to deploy fiber, but over the past years, we really picked up the pace. And as Vincent was already saying at the beginning, the past few years, we were really aggressive, as you can see here on the graph as well. So this is the standalone footprint. Proximus as a company deploying fiber without the joint ventures. Started off basically in 2017, very small volumes, but we passed the 1.5 million home passed mark last year. And that's also what I am going to focus on, because I know it very well. I have been there in the fiber network deployment since 2017-18. So it was quite a journey. It is still quite a journey. And if you click once and even twice directly, Jeroen, it was a journey that we did together with Comsoft. If we are talking about network design, planning, and high-level design, we used Comsoft as from the beginning, and we are still using Comsoft. So we have quite some experience, and that is what I want to share. Some of that experience I want to share with you in the few slides that will follow. Yes, Jeroen. So what we know at the beginning, when we were in 2017-18, we had roughly an idea, okay, we want to reach, at that time we had an objective, more or less 40% of the country we want to cover with our standalone footprint. And we started off like, okay, how we are going to tackle it. And one of the key important decisions that we took at that time was like, okay, we want to keep the design of that new network. We want to keep at least a high-level design of that network. We want to keep that in-house. Something we want as Proximus. We want to master it. We want to know how it works, and we want to keep control of it. So we started off by creating a very small team of specialized people, specialized in GIS, but directly also in Comsoft. Is one of my teams where I'm responsible for, and that is in fact the core of everything that we are doing with the high-level design in Proximus. Of course, we are not doing that alone. We have a very close link and very direct link with our engineering department, because the engineering department is responsible for creating the design rules, coming up with new ideas, coming up with new materials, perhaps. So we have a very direct link with the engineering team, and the engineering team also knows very well what we are doing with Comsoft. After that, with the engineering team, we have a very close link, but also with the IT team. The IT team is not only responsible to make sure that we have an IT environment. Basically, we are using Comsoft mainly on our laptop PCs, but we have also a server environment where we can run what we call run our Comsoft designs on it. That's one part. Second part that's very important, and that was also clear in the poll that we did, is input data. The quality of the input data is very important, but also just having that input data readily available is very important. So that's for that the IT team created also a special application, what we call the data broker, where all kinds of input data is centralized and that we can use as the source for all our Comsoft designs that we are doing. The third part in this constellation, or this molecule, whatever you want to call it, is Comsoft. And excuse me, Jeroen, that I'm still using the old logo here, but I quite like the old logo. Third party is Comsoft, and I'm not referring to Comsoft here as the tool, but I'm referring here to Comsoft as the people working at Comsoft. For me, they are part of the team. They know us very well. They have been in close contact with us as of the beginning. They know our design rules as good as we know them within Proximus. And for me, that's also a very strong element and a key success factor even, that if there are certain challenges, new things to implement, we have a direct line to Comsoft, to the people at Comsoft. They understand what we want. They understand our business, and it is very easy working in this way. All in all, this group is about, if you click, you'll show the result, is more or less 10 FTE, no more, no less. So it's a very, very small group. And basically with that group, and I'm going to add something to this to be fully clear, but basically this group is responsible for all the higher level design work that we have done to reach the 1.5 million plus home pass that we have already constructed today. There is one extra thing that I need to mention, and that is indeed there was a very critical period in our deployment of the fiber over the past few years, and that were the years 2021, 22, 23, where we did a huge acceleration. Basically, in terms of volumes, we did times two. And we needed a lot of designs at that time. What we did was we reached out to the market to see if somebody could help us with resources to chip in to do design work for us. We found a partner. We found Yungho, who supplied resources for us. But in general, I can say there are a lot of parties on the market that know Comsoft. For me, that's also a very important factor, because if you want to scale up, you know there are other parties available that can supply resources to you. At its peak, Yungho delivered 6 FTEs to us. So if I need to be really honest, we were with 16 at the peak time to do all of this design work. Nowadays, we don't need Yungho anymore, because the volumes as such, the incremental volumes as such are lower now, so we can tackle it alone. But at peak times they were with 6. Now, how is this going to work? Because this is organization, this is how we set things up. But perhaps we can take also a look at what we did, and that we will find on the next slide. Yes.
Maybe to give you 1 second to pause and breathe, I just want to remind everyone that they can ask questions to Geert and Jeroen. Use the chat box or the question box. Don't hesitate to send this question. I think there's plenty to react to, so just a friendly reminder to everyone.
Okay, thank you. And now I have a lot of fresh air. Thank you, Vincent, that I can continue. We did a lot of production, of course, right? Because that 1.5 million plus home pass that we constructed needed designs. But before jumping into the really high-level designs, it was perhaps important also to mention that we used ComSoft also a bit in a different way, right? Not in the classic, we have an area, we have divided in smaller areas, and for a small area, we do a high-level design. We have a plan, we have a bill of material, like Jeroen mentioned. We also used ComSoft in a more macro scale. We were able to configure ComSoft in such a way that we did basically a simulation of a very large part of Belgium. It was at the early stages of our program to deploy fiber. We did that simulation, and that gave us the opportunity to have a very good look at, okay, where are the most interesting areas in Belgium to start our deployment. It was based on ComSoft, it was based on the rules in ComSoft, but done for a very, very large area. It was also a very large area, a very large exercise. It took a lot of machine hours to do so, but it was very interesting, and I think it's perhaps a possibility that it's less known, but it's certainly very interesting to do. It gave us opportunity to make a planning based on, okay, where we can have the fastest return on investment, or where are the most home pass that we can reach with the least investment. It was really in that detail that we could go, and that we had a very interesting sight on what the planning could be. Also, perhaps less known is that the ComSoft designs that we made, we use them also for contract awarding. So instead, I think in general it goes like that you want to a contractor, because basically we are also working with partners, construction companies that do the construction for us. And basically, if you want to contract such a company, what you can do is you just say, okay, I have a certain polygon, I have a certain city where I want to deploy fiber. These are the basic rules how you should deploy the fiber, and give us a price, what it would cost. What we did, we gave to the construction partners designs. So we made designs up front with ComSoft that were, again, quite detailed. And for the construction partners, it was very interesting as well, because they got, as such, a very good insight in, like, okay, what is the region about that we can tender on? Is there a lot of trenching? Is there a lot of facade that we have to use? A lot of manholes, etc., etc. So for us, it was interesting to be able to give that information, but also certainly also for our construction partners, it was very useful information. And I think it gave us also better price points in the end by giving or supplying that information. So very high level design. And then of course we have, I would say, the more classical high level design that we do. But there we also did or implemented our own specific flavor on how we are doing high level designs. And basically we are taking the opportunity that with ComSoft doing a design, and I will say it otherwise, the biggest work that we have for using ComSoft or making high-level designs is cleaning the input data. It was also mentioned in the poll. Input data, having good quality input data is key. So we spend also a lot of time at cleaning the input data. But as soon as you have cleaned that input data, then doing afterwards different HLDs or high-level designs doesn't require that much of an effort. And we are basically doing, for the same region, different high-level designs, use it in an iterative way, and we imply also the construction partner in it. So we are not designing just at our site in our ivory tower, we are doing the design and then handing it over to the partner. Now we ask to the partner, the construction partner, this is the design that we want to do. Give your remarks. Are there any obstructions or strange things in the designs? Can you see if in reality it works? Give us a feedback. We run a new design with your remarks, etc., etc. Up to the point where we have a design, an HLD, that is correct, that has been agreed on by the partner. And then we use that design, more specifically the bill of material, quantities of the bill of material. We know the unit prices from our construction partners, and that gives us a budget. The budget is used to make the purchase order toward the construction partners. For us, it's very interesting because it's price or the budget that we allocate to a certain region. We have a view on how it will evolve in the future, but we are able as well to give a very correct price or allocate a very correct budget to the partner to execute and to deploy fiber. So in that sense, is for us the HLD a lot more than just a plan, a bill of material. For us, it's also the starting point of our financial process. And of course, if I look back, the third point, if I look back at comps of 5 or 6 years ago, and you have, if you click, the last part of the slide will appear here. Voilà. If I look back 5 or 6 or 7 years ago at the console that we were using at that time and the console that we are using today, it's completely different. It's something that keeps evolving even today. We are at the end stages of our deployment. Even today, it's still evolving. Why? Because we keep optimizing. We are keep searching in our engineering team for better solutions, better rules. We implement them, and as such, we have now a ComSoft version that is quite complex, but that can do quite a lot of things. And so we can combine in the same ComSoft version, we can combine underground deployment, wall mount deployment, and aerial deployment. So in the same region, we can go from aerial to wall mount to underground to aerial to whatever. All possibilities are there. And we have a point-to-point version and a point-to-multipoint version. Of course, you cannot combine those in the same region. You have to choose one of the two. And that all combined gives us a very powerful machine to do the high-level designs. In construction-wise, we are above the 1.5 million home pass that we have constructed. Design-wise, we are close to the 2 million demand points that have been calculated and that have been designed. It took us over 2,500 HLDs over that period of time, and very happy with the results. Even acquired in the meantime also in my team enough knowledge about how those ComSoft designs are really constructed, and we are making our own queries and our own scripts on those designs so that we can even do some extra calculations ourselves. So for instance, if we want to know in a certain design, a certain high-level design, if we want to know, for instance, what are the most expensive demand points in that design, We have developed some Python scripts that run on those HLDs and that give us very nice results. So voilà, that was the last bit of information that I wanted to share. So all in all, I can say that we are very happy with the trajectory that we have done so far with Comsoft, and I think it has been key in our fiber deployment that we have done and the results that we have had in the past years and are still having.
Yeah, thank you, Geert, for that explanation. It's indeed quite interesting to see the ways that Proximus has used Comsoft and the results of Comsoft Fiber to do various things, such as the construction partner selection and detailed views of custom items that weren't really in the product, but that you have embedded within Proximus to do more interesting items. So I'll wrap it up with a couple of the benefits of the usage of Comsoft Fiber, which Geert has indicated to quite some extent. So in the first column, the automation of planning and design allows to save quite a lot of costs, or quite a lot of investment, 50 to 90% as compared to the manual design. Although in the current age, I don't think anybody is still doing a fully manual design, but definitely using an automation engine like Comsoft Fiber is really useful to do redesigns. You can just, with a click of a button and a couple of changes, indicate let's redo the same design, but with, for example, a cabinet removed or a cabinet moved a certain distance in the map. So it's quite easy to do that, but also consider different network architectures. I mentioned in the beginning, there are any number of different design choices to be made. And in order to make the right decision, Comsoft Fiber allows to do different scenarios and different exercises and then compare the results, which is also what Geert indicated. Then we've also observed over the years that the build costs can be reduced because Comsoft Fiber considers the cost and will choose the correct solution to get to a lower cost of deployment. And especially the last number in that column is quite interesting. If you do a good job of the design phase, then it's almost possible at the end of the design phase to say this is what my actual rollout will cost. The variance between the planned to build and the as built scenario is really small, or is getting really small, as opposed to you make a design and then once it's built, it's quite an order of magnitude more expensive than planned. So that's also a very useful result of usage of Comsoft Fiber. And then the last column is the reduction of errors and increasing of efficiency. There's a number of built-in quality checks within Comsoft Fiber to make sure that, for example, bad input data is detected and warned about, so that users can zoom in on certain pieces and correct that. And also, as mentioned, all designs are created with identical rules because it's not a human making all the choices. It's only the important bits where a manual or where a planner needs to make choices that are done by a human. The rest is all algorithms that are doing the grunt work, so to speak. So everything that is automatable is done by Comsoft. Then key takeaways of what Geert and I have been discussing over the last half hour or so. So first of all, use high quality data. I don't think I need to emphasize that. The poll really pointed in that direction. Really, that's the starting point of the whole design process. It's really useful to be able to evaluate scenarios and make informed decisions, which architecture, which equipments, which type of deployment will we be using, and also automation using advanced algorithms. That will all result in reducing costs, both for your design process, but also the total cost of ownership of your network. And finally, empowering the design teams. As Geert mentioned, with a very small team, Proximus has been able to design the whole of Belgium. Okay, Belgium isn't very big, but still the team was very small to do that kind of a job in the Proximus use case. And then I'll wrap it up before we go to the questions with a look forward in time. So in 2 weeks' time, there's the FTTH conference in Amsterdam, where IQGeo will be at stand G09. So if you are interested in what we explained today, please come and visit us. We can give you a demo we can zoom in on your specific problems. There's also 2 other activities that we're participating in, which is the workshop on Tuesday afternoon with our partners Viavi and Diplomatic for a right first time fiber connection strategy, building on what we've been discussing today. And then finally, the vibration night, we will be there, so hoping to see you all there as well. And maybe one side note, we're hoping to get an innovation award of the FTTH conference because we are shortlisted with NRO, Network Revenue Optimizer, one of the other products that IQGeo has in its portfolio. So that's about it from my end. Thank you all for your attention. And and let's see if there's any questions that Geert or I can shed some light on.
Thank you, Jeroen. There are indeed some questions coming in. I'm starting with the first one. Is the tool also automating or supporting in any way the production of permits demand attached to the project, the submission to relevant parties and the tracking of answers?
The Comsoft Fiber tool as such is not, because this is mainly focusing on design. Well, of course, the design is needed to create a permit and then pass it on to the local government or local authorities. But the actual tracking of permits, that is possible with one of the other tools in our ecosystem. So Comsoft Fiber is really focusing on the first, making those design, optimizing choices, and then afterwards, it needs to be tracked through another mechanism in the IQGeo tool suite.
Okay. Where does the GIS data come from? That's so important for any Comsoft Fiber design.
Yeah, I'll maybe first pass this one on to Geert to see what you can tell about, and then I'll add it on from my point of view.
We have different sources. Main source is government supplied data. And so we have in Belgium the pleasure of having 3 regions that have their own set of data. So that's one challenge for us, but a lot comes from government. And we also do our own calculations to get the right input data. Give an example, we use, for instance, the street data, street access and street sidelines as a basis, but then we do a calculation to identify where we can do trenching, what we call trenching lines. The same with facade. We start off with government supplied data, where are all the houses and the front of the houses, and then we do some calculations on it to identify what we call facade lines, where you can do facade. So a lot starts with government data. We have also some in-house data that we are using. That can be, for instance, already existing infrastructure that can be reused. But I think that are the 2 main ones. So government inside, what we have inside. And then the third flavor is that we do our own calculations to get what we want.
Yeah, indeed, Geert, I think in Belgium we're quite fortunate that the government has inventorized a lot of GIS data and that is free for usage for this kind of thing. I don't think that's the case anywhere. But as you mentioned, we've also seen that especially incumbents have their own database of historical GIS data that they've built up through the years. So that's definitely one. There are commercial partners or commercial parties that provide GIS data in various parts of the world. So that's the one that we've seen our clients use. And then I think the last one, last freely available one is sources like OpenStreetMap or any other GIS data that's freely available on the market. Of course, as mentioned a lot of times before, the quality of that data is essential. And I think, as Geert mentioned, the process of improving that data from any source is really useful, because if you start with wrong data at the beginning of the design process, everything else will also fall down. So the activity of making sure the design data is of high quality, if necessary, going out for surveys and making sure the time is spent to get that data to a certain quality, that is essential, I think, from any any source where it comes from. And I think as well here that there's quite a number of surveys happening during the design and build process to make sure the data is
Yes,
kept up to
yeah,
date.
yeah, indeed. Just to make sure that we start off with the right data, we do indeed what we call street surveys. So we are going to count the letterboxes, as we call it, to make sure that we have the right number of living units to start off with. We do site surveys to know how the inside of multi-dwelling units is. And recently, something that I forgot to mention earlier, we are also using third-party information. For instance, we have information regarding the electricity poles in the Walloon region that we got via Cyclomedia.
Okay, Fabio is asking what DB, I guess it stands for database, is used, and which architecture do you adopt, cloud, on-premises, or web-based?
That's actually pretty open. So as Geert mentioned, Comso Fiber can be run on a laptop for local calculations or anything that needs a quick run through that doesn't need any cloud access. But we also have a cloud solution where the planner is doing whatever they need on their screen with the input data and then sending it off to a cloud hosted server, set of cloud hosted servers, which allows for queuing and then following up on calculations. Because depending on the size of a design, this can take a bit of time. I think, as Geert mentioned, the calculation of the whole of Belgium with about 2.5 million households, that takes a bit of time. So we don't want to do that on your local machine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's another question. How does the solution handle changes and updates once the construction already is starting? Once the construction after the construction begins, how do you adjust?
Yeah, I think, well, maybe Geert, do you want to tackle that? I have a
Well,
view, but
we are trying to avoid that we will still have changes once construction has started, and that was why I was also mentioning that through the design process we are doing different HLD runs, like we call it, just to make sure, together with a partner, to make sure that we capture every possible feedback from them before they start. Of course, there can always be some last minute changes, but as we see them with the process that we have, there are changes, but they are quite rare.
Yep, I would agree with that, Geert. The workflow that's being put in place in the usage of any automation tool is very important, and the fact that indeed the stability of a design should be as high as possible before the actual construction starts is really in there. And I think dividing it up into individual pieces, so let's say a certain city into blocks, that's already a good start. So we can say, well, this block will be constructed. We talk to the construction partners. We make sure every information that we can have is already there. And then it's rolled out as close as possible to the automated design. And if there are any changes, then there shouldn't really be any reruns of the automated design. But there is a mechanism that we employ during the design phase that allows to lock certain aspects. For example, the location of a cabinet. Yeah, once you have a permit for that cabinet from the local government, it needs to stay there. And there's quite a number of items that can be locked during a Comso Fiber run, so that this is all in place, and then everything else can still be optimized. For example, trenches are fixed, but the number of cables, ducts, and fibers can still change because that's inside of that already locked component.
Another question, I guess every project is different and specific. So the question is how easy can design parameter be adjusted to be aligned with the specificity of each different project? Do you need to restart from scratch, or can you very rapidly customize the parameters?
I think there's two levels to that answer, or at least I see two levels. First is we have a couple of templates available of architecture that we consider as more or less default, but indeed that doesn't always cover the bill. There's quite a number of other types of equipment, other parameters like how many homes can be connected to a cabinet, how many clients can be connected to a pole, and so on. So Comsol Fiber has quite an extensive user interface with lots of parameters that can be configured. So the couple I just explained, those can be varied. And with that way, we're quite flexible in providing support for quite a lot of architectures out of the box. So the standard product is able to do that. And then, yeah, if it goes a bit further, that's my second aspect of the answer. We also have a customization team, people who understand the software, who will talk to our clients, and then add functionality or write some different functionality to make sure that the architecture that the client is targeting are also supported. And yeah, Geert, I think most of what you've explained about the growth of Comsol Fiber at Proximus is combination of roadmap and customizations.
Yeah, indeed, and I want to add to that. We have requested over the past few years a lot of changes to Comsol. What we wanted to do also, or used to do, if there are certain parameters that we want to adapt or add, we asked in most cases also to Comsol to provide them as, or to configure them as a parameter. So for instance, certain splicing rules or splicing ratios, they can be put into the software as a parameter that you can change. You can change the number, or you can just set a rule on off, or off. That is also very handy that we have that possibility to do so. And secondly, like Jeroen was saying, if there are really new design rules, new changes, there is also, and that's, I'm always very happy with that as well with Comsol. There is a very short lead time to get new things implemented. So it's we typically work also in an agile way with Comsol. So we have a 2-week cycle to do developments. We can prioritize, reprioritize. So that's also a very flexible way of working.
Thank you. I think we are reaching nearly the end of the session. So before I maybe let Jeroen conclude, I have a personal question to Geert. You explained that you've been working with the Comsol suite and tool nearly from the inception of the fiber deployment effort at Proximus. Now, looking backwards, would that deployment have been possible without such a solution? How essential is it in your strategy, in your organization, to develop such an ambitious plan?
For me, it's key to have something like Comsol. It's simply not doable without such a tool. It's not just also a question of saving a lot of manpower and saving as such a lot on resources and budget allocated to resources, but we have done a certain number of things that would be simply impossible without the Comsol tool, especially in the acceleration that we did with our deployment. With all the optimizations that we have done with the tool, for me it would be simply impossible if we wouldn't have had that tool to do it with a manual labor workforce of, you could have 100 or 200 people. It wouldn't be possible, simply put. For me, it's really essential, and I can also say that the fact that we are using Comsol is also very well known within the company, even to the higher management. That's a disadvantage that the higher management knows that there is something like Comsol, because they can ask us a lot of things like, oh, but you have Comsol, so you can do this, you can simulate that. So yeah, just joking about that, but just to say how important it is within Proximus. It is well known and well acknowledged that Comsoft played a very important role in our fiber rollout.
Well, that's a nice transition for you, Jeroen.
Yes, yes, indeed. Thanks for that. Yeah, I think indeed, as you mentioned, Vincent, the time is almost finished. So I'd like to thank Geert for his contribution. Also, thanks to the FTTH Council for hosting us, and to everybody who just listened into our lessons learned and the items that Geert and we did over the last couple of years. So, as mentioned before, if you'd like to hear more about this or have a personal discussion, please come visit us on the FTTH conference at our booth. And thanks all for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. The replay will be made available. So thanks to both of you, Jeroen and Geert. More webinar will come your way. You should receive invitation in the weeks to come after the FTTH conference, where you're all warmly invited to come and visit in person in Amsterdam in 2 weeks' time. So thanks very much for attending this webinar. I wish you a good rest of your day and hope to see you either in Amsterdam or at any of our other online events. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.